When I started my career in documentary filmmaking, I admired those thriving in the industry. I was right where you are, dreaming big and scared of stumbling. Years later, I went from distributing my very first documentary to filming in over 35 countries. And now, this podcast is where we share skills, stories, and lessons with filmmakers, including those who won Oscars and Emmys, to help each other grow and create impactful documentaries. Going from fixing VHS recorder to become a director of photography is the story I'm going to tell you today, guys. I decided to have Joe Katches. He's a wonderful director of photography that works both in fiction and documentary. And we covered a lot. Honestly, we covered his story. We talked a little bit about what does it mean to be a Christian filmmaker today, how we should be better at making movies and documentaries, especially documentary. I don't see much happening in that regard. But also we talked about the skills that a director of photography should have. Now, if you're looking more specifically on how to thrive in the film business, when it comes to the relationship side of things, as a director of photography, especially when it comes to deal with directors, well, we have a specific video where Joe explained all these things. You just need to go on howwefilm.com, register is for free, you don't need to pay. But for that specific part of the film business side and relationship side, well, go on the website. But I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Don't forget that if you have specific questions regarding documentary production, post-production, pre-production, you name it, well, you just need to go on howwefilm.com, scroll at the bottom of the homepage. You can submit any questions you have. I'll create a video with the answer. I'll do my best. I don't know everything. I'll give you my answer, of course, but I'll try to help you out. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I love you guys. Let's go from the beginning, though. One thing I would like to learn is, like, how did you get in the industry? Did you start it because, like you always wanted to do that, or that's just randomly happened? Like, what is the story behind all of that?
Yeah, so I would say from a young age, I got really into filmmaking. My brothers and we would just go in our backyard with, I borrowed a video camera from one of my friends. He had this VHS camcorder.
How
And
old were
so
you?
I was freshman in high school,
Okay.
maybe a little younger, somewhere right in there. And we would just borrow his VHS camcorder and go and shoot movies in our backyard. And I I remember we'd have to shoot everything in sequence because it was recorded to a VHS. Everything would have to be one take, and then what we would do is we'd take a full videotape of like 6 or 7 short films and we'd just pass it around our high school. So it's me and my older brother and my younger brother, and we'd go around the high school and just hand it out to other people. I never got some of those tapes back. I wonder if they're still floating around somewhere. I have no idea. Um, but my first job was I was a VHS repairman. So I would fix VHS tapes, whether they were snapped or mangled, and have to
Hmm.
piece them together. And so during that time, I'm watching a ton of movies, whether they're A-list movies or B-list movies, whatever, but just watching tons of movies. And I really grew to just love film. I loved filmmaking, storytelling. Actually, even to back up a little bit, when I was young, I saw the movie Jaws, and that was the first movie I remember having like a big psychological impact on me, and the fear of
Hmm.
water and the fear of the unknown, and to see how powerful film was to impact someone. I just realized from a young age what a powerful medium it was, and that really attracted me to it. But even from a young age, holding that camera in my hands in high school and making movies, I just always loved to create images and to tell stories with images. And I found myself just continually drawn to being behind the camera. Um, so during college, I took a lot of film and theater. I did a lot of
Ah,
theater
okay.
lighting, did a lot of film studies, film history, film education, narrative stuff, all kinds of film classes. The interesting thing is I didn't major in film. I
Okay.
didn't go to a film school. Actually, during my college years, I went on a mission trip and wanted to become a missionary in Alaska. And so
Okay.
I kind of put all the film stuff aside and went and got a degree in Bible and then a master's degree in theology. So I went on a
That's
totally,
interesting because is I wanted to do the same.
yeah, yeah. And you know, what's funny,
cinema. I mean, documentary production came after that. Like
yeah, it's so that is really interesting. I heard Martin Scorsese on an interview once, and did you know he was training to be a Catholic priest? Did you know
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and it's
I thought
interesting.
that was so interesting.
I know
Yeah,
it's interesting because like years later, then he makes the movie. I don't remember the title, but about the two missionaries in Japan. I want to say Asia for
yeah,
sure,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yep, yep, totally. And yeah, it's called Silence. It's based off the
Silence.
book
Yes,
Silence. Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah. Beautiful shot movie. I mean, it's incredible. If nobody's seen it, go watch it. It's shot very beautifully. Um, but one thing I do think that's very connected with a theology or like a study of Bible and film.
Huh.
Christopher Nolan once said is that every film is a statement on human nature, and I've learned so much about human nature from studying the Bible that I think the
Hmm.
two go hand in hand, and also the storytelling of the Bible. There's so much connected,
Hmm.
that actually I think the degree really fits hand in hand with with filmmaking in so many ways. But yeah,
And I think
after
I sorry to interrupt.
no, no, go ahead.
I think that for me personally, the connection is also with the concept of beauty. That
Oh
it's a
yeah,
glimpse to something that is greater than us. Whenever you see
well
something
said.
beautiful, right? It's like it calls for something that is more. Like I think we all
Yeah,
long for something more. Whether you have
yep,
a house, a
totally.
car, or whatever, you always want more, right? And I
Yep,
think beauty, though, is something you cannot touch it, but it just gets
yep,
to your soul, and then you're kind of like it seems to be like even like the Bible speaks about God's glory displayed in the nature, in the beauty of the
right,
nature and the
right.
creation. I think, man, there's something connected with that
Yeah,
because when
that's so well said. The
because
aesthetic of that. Yeah,
yeah, and I think to the point that I think for me is becoming like almost like a disease where like I need to have beauty. Like I'm serious. Like if I am I
yeah,
have to work in a place that I don't necessarily like it, or it feels like
right,
a little bit abandoned. Like I just struggle more to create. Where
right,
I I lived my life for 15 years in Florence. So it's like wherever you go, man, like you go with your scooter above the bridge and you see the skyline of Florence with the sunset. It's
right.
just like, and so I think, and then I think with that beauty, then it started to to come with, well, how do I frame that, and how do you create
Yeah,
the balance of that
yeah.
inside the frame? But anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
That's so no, that's so well said. You should keep going on that. That's awesome. I completely agree with what you're saying and think the beauty is connected from the Bible to filmmaking. I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think let's do this. Let me let you finish the story, and then because I would like to go deeper on that. I'm really curious to know what you think, and
yeah,
we don't necessarily need to put this in the podcast, but I want to know your opinion about something related with beauty and
yeah,
films, and how come that then it seems to me, sorry if I make this statement, that most Christians then seems like that they're not able to do that. Like Christians to me, I think they should be the
yeah,
first one,
yeah,
right? Like
yep,
if you follow the concept, right, that beauty
yeah,
somehow is connected to the God that you have a personal relationship with,
yeah.
then well, it should flow much more into the art that you create. And
Oh
so
yeah,
your beauty should be really beautiful. Yet it seems to me that somehow when as Christians I'm speaking, right? And
yeah,
of course this is a personal opinion, anybody can disagree with this. I think that then we don't do a good job in creating
right,
that beauty that
right.
somehow, and I don't know, man.
Yeah.
There's something
Well,
there.
there's been a big pendulum swing against this idea of, movies and music and whatever. You don't want to partake in the art. You want to shun it and kind of, not be a part of that as a Christian, because all of that's bad, and we should live like monks, whipping ourselves. And it's like,
I
but
know.
that's not, you look at like the reformers, and all of them were like, no, whatever your work is, do it all to God's glory, and do it to the best of your ability to God's glory. So if I'm going to be a filmmaker, I want to do the best I can. I want to bring the best light I can. I want to bring the best tools to tell that story.
No, I agree.
Um, so that's, yeah, that's, I mean, that I agree with what you're saying. Francis Schaeffer was very much that way when he would talk about beauty and using art to display the beauty of God and the
Hmm.
glory of God. And he was always harping on that in his books, like How Then Shall We Live, all those things,
How do you spell it?
which
Francis, S-H?
Francis Schaeffer, yeah,
Oh,
F
Schaeffer.
R,
Schaeffer, yes.
yeah,
Sorry.
Francis
I didn't
Schaeffer,
catch
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay, 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 okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But he was, I mean, C.S. Lewis is that
C.S.
way
Lewis
too.
too, yeah.
Yeah, J.R.
That's,
Tolkien. These guys
that's
all,
true.
like, they're all artists in their own right who were trying to display truth and beauty through the medium of art. And they didn't have film cameras in their hands, but the pen and the paper were their tools to do that. So, and
No,
they're admired today by many people who say, like, oh, Christians shouldn't be involved in filmmaking, but like, no, that was their medium of the day, and this is
do
kind
you,
of our medium of the day.
that after, because like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, they were, come from the same historical period of time. I don't know anybody that after that has had the same impact
No,
with
I
their
don't
with
I
their
don't
work.
either. No, I mean you look at the Lord of the Rings and the enduring impact that's had. I mean, there's even an Amazon Prime series, Rings
I
of
saw, yes.
Power,
Yeah.
which strays, from what I understand, quite a bit. I haven't read all his Lord of the Rings stuff, but I guess some of it strays from it, and some of the fans aren't happy. Um,
In the series.
but in but in terms of like that story, just like continuing on, and how much truth is packed into the allegory of those stories, it's really fascinating to see
I
that.
think that it seems to me that somehow, I don't know when that happened, but it seemed like the Christians switched to think that um, somehow that kind of creativity
Yeah,
that brings allegoric images, and it's not directly the message of the gospel, then
right.
is a waste of time. It's
Yeah,
got to be a
yeah,
reason, or something like that, in order to
yeah,
see the fruit of what we've seen in the last, I don't know, 3 4 decades now.
right.
Don't get me wrong, there are some things here and there, but not with that
No,
exceptional
not
beauty
not to the
and
level of that.
uh like deep,
Yeah,
profound, yet
totally.
like connected with thematic, and I think it speaks also about how seriously we take our role in what we
Right,
do. Like,
right, right.
I think really it speaks against us, that
Yeah,
that and it makes me think a lot about the way we're approaching creativity in general, the concept of beauty, and the seriousness in which we work on the things
yep,
that we create.
yep.
So
Yeah, and
anyway.
people are afraid to go there, I think it's safe to make a movie that checks boxes
Mm,
and could have some financial return, because it is a business,
that's true.
and people know what sells, and in the Christian filmmaking market, there's a certain film and certain boxes you check to sell a film. And so they play it safe, because they
Mm,
also say, like, hey, we're spending millions of dollars, and we want to get a return for that millions of dollars, and make another movie after this. And so, to a certain extent, they can't shoot something like Terrence Malick, because that's not going to sell in that space. And I think Terrence Malick has made one of the most beautiful, incredible Christian films I've seen, in A Hidden
mm.
Life. But it flew under the radar. Didn't, from what I understand, probably didn't sell very well. But I think
Mm.
it's one of the most powerful Christian films I've ever seen.
I haven't watched it.
Um, yeah, it's
I
great. I won't give you any spoilers, but yeah, you should check it out. It's a great movie.
All right.
Beautifully,
I'll do it.
incredibly shot. So,
I'll take a
yeah,
look
the
at it.
guy who shot it worked a lot with Chivo as his camera operator, and so he was the DP for Hidden Life. I can't remember his name, but he was a cam op for Chivo for a number of years on Malik's projects. So,
All right. I'll check that out. Anyway,
yeah.
sorry for the big parenthesis
Oh no,
over
you're
this. It's
good. You're
just that
good.
I like, as soon as you started talking about that, I was like, I have so many questions.
It was cool to hear your thoughts on that. That was really awesome.
So let's go
Um,
back to your story. So you
yeah, yeah,
basically
yeah. I
okay.
was winding down anyways, but yeah, let's jump back
So
in.
you were like you were you finished like you were passionate about filming, but then you studied
Right.
theology. Then what happens after that?
So my wife and I moved up to Alaska as missionaries, and we
Oh,
were
you
up
actually
there
did
for.
it.
We did it. Yeah, I was up there for 3 years. Long story short, our house had black mold in it. I got horribly sick. I had to get medevaced out because I had a severe reaction to the mold. And the doctors told us you can't go back there. You can't go back to that house. So we moved back down to California,
Hmm.
and I jumped back into filmmaking. I just said I'm just gonna
Hmm.
this is gonna be our career down here, and so it was really perfect timing because at that time there was kind of the DSLR revolution, and all these
Ah.
affordable cameras are coming out to where you don't have to be on a big set. It was kind of that big indie push of like, hey, you can make films from anywhere. And it was kind of just perfect timing to jump in and grab a cheap camera kit and just start shooting stuff. And so that's what I did. I didn't know anyone, didn't have any network. I had been out of it for probably 6 or 7 years and
Huh.
just had no connections at all, starting from scratch. I mean, zero. And I just asked God to help open doors, and He did, and He opened a
So
lot of doors. So,
what project did you start to work with? I mean, what kind of project
um,
you started?
it's funny. I started. I think I just started going around asking people, "Do you need film for anything? Do you need film for your brand? Um, do you need this project?" And then I would find short film listings online and say, "Hey, do you need a DP for this?" And I just kept asking, and that's how I began meeting people. Was just getting on set and just saying, "Hey, I'd love to shoot your project," and so we did. We would collaborate together, and pretty soon it became a full-time thing, and yeah, so that's really where it took off, was just getting on set and meeting people.
Now,
And I at
go ahead.
first I would do I wanted to be cinematographer, wanted to be DP, but there were a lot of sets I worked on initially where I would come in as like a grip or come in as a
Hmm.
camera operator, whatever,
Hmm.
just to
Hmm.
be on set and meet people. And so I worked through a lot of those sets where it was just me trying to learn all the positions and everything, because after not being in it for 6 or 7 years, it takes a while to like
Yeah.
you have to kind of reorient yourself and figure out what is what and how does this run and how's it different from when I was in it before, all this stuff.
Mm.
So I
And
just, yeah, and that's how I built a network too. So
and what do you think you learned the most? Like what you know today? I mean, it's a journey, right? We know that you're still
yeah,
learning to this day, and we're all learning still as you go. But I
yeah.
would say, like, you learn mainly from, watching stuff online, on set.
Oh,
Like,
that's a good question. Yeah, I'd say it's a combination. I mean, I still take classes to this day. I sign up for online classes, sometimes in-person classes. I mean, I also so I learn a lot through online. I mean, I have a gazillion books back here. Um, I ask a lot of questions on set, even if it's a different department. It might be audio. Why do you do that? Like, I'm just
uh,
that's part of filmmaking. You're just always learning and always grabbing ideas from others and seeing what worked for them and why it worked, and trying to implement that if it works in your workflow. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, I'm always learning, man. I feel like I know this much about
Oh no,
filmmaking.
I feel the same.
Yeah,
Yet it's yeah, it's one of those things that it's when you get something you really like, it's a really good feeling.
yeah,
Yet you always feel like it's not perfect,
yeah. Oh yeah,
right? Like
definitely,
you
definitely,
always feel like, oh, this could be much better. This could be much better. Then
always.
but I go back to, the shots that I've seen from your stuff. And I'm like, when did you get a sense that I'm like, oh man, this is coming together well. I like what I'm seeing. Like how long
Yeah.
it take to get there.
um, it's funny because I don't feel like I'm there. Like it'll be the night before a shoot and I'm like, I want to quit, man. I shouldn't be doing this. Like I don't know that I'll ever be there. I don't have confidence walking into any shoot really. I feel like it could go great, it could be a disaster. I have no idea. It's just, but I
Hmm.
try to prep as much as I can, and but there hasn't been any point where I've looked back and been like, I've arrived or I feel like I got this. I think I'm just always learning,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I can't say that I'm like, I, I can't say I ever watch my stuff and I'm like, you nailed that, you got that. It's more like, I think something might have went well there. Like, I don't, I don't
But
know.
but clearly, if people call you back, that means that the director or
Yeah,
whoever
and
produces, like, they like
that's
it.
always encouraging. Yeah, is when you get called back or you work with the same director over and over again, and that happens a lot, and that's wonderful. And one thing I have learned though is that I don't have to be the most talented. You don't have to be the most talented. You do have to be
Ah.
proficient. You have to know what you're doing and how to do it and how to reduplicate what you're doing. You have to know those things. But you don't have to be the most talented. You just have to be proficient and you have to work well with others. Like that's
Uh,
I always tell people being a like a director of photography is three things. You're a manager, which is not something a lot of people expect. But you're managing people, you're managing
mm,
time, you're doing a ton of management. You're a technician. You have some level of understanding of technicalities of
mm, mm.
t-stops and light and
Yeah,
the inverse square law, all these things, and then you're an artist. So it's a manager, technician, and an artist, and you have to be proficient in those three things. But on the other side, you have to have some level of communication and personality and
that's true.
working well with others. There's that side to it too that I
Joe, believe it or not, I think in so many conversations that we're having on this podcast, that comes out like probably
yeah,
50% of the time. If I ask a
yeah,
producer what will be, the main skill for you to be a producer, if somebody's listening,
yep.
and they all say, like, man, like you can be the greatest editor, the greatest producer, but if you don't work well with people, then
That's that's
something,
so
some,
much of it.
yeah, it's true. And I mean, I can see why. I usually I prefer to work with somebody that I like, even if
Yeah,
it's less, let's say, prolific or good
yeah, right,
than somebody else that
right.
I like and that is easy to work and they want to help you and they're there for you if there is a problem. Because
That's so
because
true.
that, especially in our world, like it happens, not it's not a it's not like, oh, today we had a problem. It's like it's always like that. It's you have to worry
Always.
when you don't have problems. Like what's going on? Is the camera rolling? Like maybe we didn't hit
Yeah,
record. Like
yeah,
something is wrong. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like it's because something is
Oh
gonna go
yeah.
wrong. It's just a matter of what.
Always.
Yeah.
Something always will go wrong. It's true.
And no, but it's interesting because uh I'm I think it's the first time that I'm having this kind of conversation with somebody that does both fiction and documentary,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
you told me when we spoke over the phone, you told me that I don't know if you're still filming or you just finished to film the series for what's the name? Man, the documentary,
There was I
the
finished one
American,
called
the American Gospel,
The American
the
Gospel.
American
Yeah,
Gospel, right?
I believe that's wrapped. It went from being a documentary to like a 10-part series. So it's
It's
been like
crazy.
a 4.5 year project. But I believe it's wrapped. I think we shot our last interview like 4 or 5 months ago, and it should be
Yeah,
wrapped.
because when I got in touch with Brendan, he told me that he had the summer, and then until the
I
end of the
Yeah,
year, like they're
I
editing
think we're
right now.
wrapped.
Okay,
I hope
so
we're wrapped.
what I was saying is like what I was saying is that you jump from fiction to a project like that it's very different, and I would like to
Right.
explore with you a little bit about both worlds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
when it comes to fiction, what does it look like, your relationship with the director, and how do you basically play your part in the direct?
Yeah.
I try to you know put a phrase there to define it, and you tell me if that's right, and maybe you can give me an idea. So the director has a vision. So he
Yep.
comes in and he says, "This is what I see. This is what I would like to see. This is why I imagine this way. Blah 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 blah."
Right.
But
Right.
then you come in and you have to make that happen. When you are there, you know that you have one shot. You you're not
Right.
gonna say, "Oh, if it goes wrong, we can always come back tomorrow and shoot it
Yeah,
again."
yeah, right, right. Yeah.
And
Yeah, if in the fiction world there are instances where they do reshoots. Sometimes they do a lot of reshoots, um but if you're working in the indie fiction world, which is where I mostly work,
mm,
there's usually not time or budget for
yeah,
reshoots. Very little. There was a film that shot recently, not too far from where I'm at, where they had to do a lot of reshoots because they shot the film, they gave it to test audiences, and it was not received well, so they did a bunch of reshoots. But you want to avoid that at all costs. You want to get
mm,
everything done on the shoot schedule, and
yeah,
not have
yeah,
to go there to reshoots. So, but that's why
yeah,
pre-production's so important, because you iron out a lot of these things in pre-production and
yeah.
figure out how to cut time, how to cut costs, how to cut a lot of
And
these things by just planning effectively.
I would say even refine every little thing, like the ideas, like
Everything.
what the more they are refined and you excluded all the other options. When you're on set, you have to make a quick decision. Having
Yeah,
all of that in in your brain,
all of it.
it's yeah.
You
But
have to, like you said earlier so well, you have to be able to adapt and
mm,
and be able to say like, here's a problem we weren't planning on, and we have to work around this and figure out how to retell this in the same get the same idea across, but change up
like,
our framing, change up our lighting, do whatever, because we have a problem now that we didn't anticipate.
do you
So
know the famous interview of Bruce Lee when he says, "Oh, you put a water in a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. So be water, my friend." Like there's a famous interview of Bruce Lee saying that,
oh,
and I
I'm
feel like
stealing
that's
that.
so true for people involved in the filmmaking industry. Like
That's
it's,
so well said.
but
Way to go, Bruce
the-
Lee.
but
That's awesome.
but you were saying one thing, Joe, that is making me think. So clearly, I'm trying to understand what's your idea, or like at least how you work specifically when the director has a vision,
Hmm.
yet you give your input.
Yeah.
And I would like for you to give me some example or guide me through a little bit on how do you choose the equipment and how do you come up with ideas on how you're going to shoot something. And more specifically, maybe we can go in examples where, I don't know, you tell me, hey, if I know that that scene has to be, is to convey this kind of emotion, usually I use this lens. I would like for you
Right.
to give me some practical example, because I think that especially in the beginning, I have never had that for years.
Mm. Mm.
I would go like, and then realize after, oh man, this would have looked much better with a 70 millimeters than,
Yeah.
an
Right.
18, right?
Right.
I'm very,
Right.
very stupid. And so when
Yeah.
I started to notice that, I'm like, oh, I need to adjust something. Yet, I think to this day, I don't think I have a reference where I go and I say, oh, that has to be, that wants to convey this emotion. I use this lens. Or
Right.
like, How do you do that?
Well, it's different for different projects, and I mean, just as an example, with projects people would have seen, you look at a guy like Ridley Scott, and most of his movies are shot long lens. He
Mm,
likes a lot of the close-ups. He likes um, shooting something on 135
mm,
millimeter and higher, or and then like his movie Napoleon, he's shooting like three cameras and they're all on longer lenses,
mm.
but he can get away with shooting three cameras because they're all
Yeah.
on these long lenses. But then you look at a guy like Terrence Malick, and he almost shoots his movies exclusively on wide lenses, like a 12 millimeter, 12 to
Mm,
14 millimeter. So, you have different directors who gravitate towards different looks.
mm.
And they'll say the same thing, but they're getting there with a different lens. Like, I've heard Ridley Scott say he likes a longer lens because it feels more personal. And then I've heard Malick say the same thing. I like a wide lens because it feels, when you're close with the wide lens, it feels more personal. So it's just interesting to see how different directors use the different tools to convey. But this is where I think the importance of language comes in, and
Ah.
how you establish film language according to whatever project you're shooting. Um, there's a series called The Night of, shot by Igor Martinovich. And the idea of that film is the truth obscured. And what Igor does is he uses lenses. He shoots a lot of wide lenses because this idea of this person going against the system.
Ah.
And so what you'll see is a ton of wide framing, where the character's very small and then the environment's really
Mm,
big.
mm,
So what's he doing? He's establishing a language, a visual
mm,
language that
mm, mm,
conveys
mm.
ideas through the lenses. One example I shot a narrative project. It was a short film, and it was called The Grays. It was a Western short film, and it was about how there really wasn't a black and white character. Everybody kind of had some good and some bad,
Mm.
and there wasn't really somebody black and white. And so the idea the director told me is everyone's down the middle. So what I did was I shot it anamorphic because anamorphic funnels my eye to the center of the frame. And so that's what I wanted to do, is compose everything center framed. Now, whether I was shooting on a 12 or a 40 or a
Yeah.
50, 70, it didn't matter. The idea was I want everything funneled towards the center of the frame. I wanted the distortion on the edge so it moved me towards the middle of the frame. Um, but yeah, I mean, I tend to stay on the wider focal lengths. I like shooting anything from like, 12 millimeter to 50 millimeter, maybe 65. I don't really push beyond that for most of
Okay.
my projects. Um, but here's another example. Again, it's different for every
Yeah,
project
yeah,
because
yeah,
you're
yeah.
developing a
No, but
language. Um, I shot a short film, a family drama short film, and I shot most of it on a 32 millimeter. The thinking the director and I had in mind for the 32 millimeter was that it gave you the ability to feel close, but also feel a little
that's true.
distant. It was kind of in between. It wasn't so wide that you felt distance, and it wasn't so close that you felt close. And the idea was that all the characters was that they were close by family relation, but there was distance between all of them. So we said we looked through all the lenses, and we said the 32 millimeter gives us that feeling of feeling close but somewhat distant. So we shot the whole thing on a 32 millimeter. Those, again, it's just
No,
like,
no, I understand.
that's where I go as an artist. I just say, what does this lens give me that relates to this theme in this story? And then I just choose whatever lens. And I might run through a full series of lenses on a project. I might run through a 12 meter all the way to 85 millimeter, because I feel that it's right for the shot. It gets me the wide I need. It gets me the close up I need. It depends on what the shot is and what feeling I'm trying to create with the director.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you want to know more about practices that a director of photography should have
Also, if you want to know more about how a director of photography works in documentary filmmaking, how do you choose the right lens as well, we're gonna cover that in the second episode. Also, if you're looking more specifically on how do you handle relationship in order to thrive in the film industry, well, Joe speaks about that in a very short video that sits on howwefilm.com. You just need to go on exclusive content, register for free, and you're going to be able to watch that video. Also, if you have any questions regarding documentary, film production, pre-production, or post-production, well, we have a section where you can submit your questions. I'll create a video with the answer, and we're gonna post it on YouTube, Spotify, you name it, all the platform. And yeah, guys, I hope this was helpful, inspiring, and I hope this is just another tiny little piece that will help you to improve in the way that you produce documentaries, in the way that you tell stories. I'll see you next time.